Tractate Bava Metzia, page 103. We're getting close to the end of this beautiful tractate. We start today on page 102b, 9 lines from the bottom of the page. Ba'u minei Rabbi Yanai. The subject of landlord-tenant, when it's come to paying rent and more, is the core subject of today. Here we have a disputation between landlord-tenant. The question is if the rent was paid or not. Imagine nowadays you have many people that have a management companies that does that for them and they're computerized. In those days, but it can apply soon you see to our days, it's the conflict between landlord-tenant, and here it presented Ba'u minei Rabbi Yanai, socher amar natati, umaskir amar lo natalti, al mi lehavi re'aya. So here when you have a conflict between landlord and tenant, good morning. So the question is, who needs to prove he is right? Here is the word of the Rambam, Hilchot Schirut, chapter 7. In a case where a landlord demands rent from his rent, or tenant nowadays, and the tenant claims to have already paid, and the landlord denies his claim. So if the landlord demanded the money during the rental period, then the renter must bring proof of his claim, and if he cannot do it, so you have no choice but to pay. So you see here the language. Ba'u minei Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai ask this question. So a fellow rent a house to Reuven, rent a house to Shimon for a yearly lease, and it was a conflict between them about the payment of that lease. Socher omer natati, the tenant said, I paid you. Umaskir amar lo natalti, and the landlord said, I never received anything from you. Al mi lehavi re'aya, who has the burden of proof? So here the Gemara elaborates and said, Ei matai, we have to know when exactly this disputation between the tenant and landlord took place. I betoch zmano, if you tell me that this happened when it was not yet the payment of the rent, which is middle of the year. You remember what we studied day before yesterday? When it's come to rent, we go by the end. In the language of the Talmud, Ein schirut mishtalemet ela besofa, which is the last day of the lease. Tanina, we learn something similar to that in the Mishnah. Soon we're going to zoom in the Mishnah. Achar zmano, Tanina, if it was passing the time of the yearly lease, we also learn the Mishnah. So why in the world you need to present a question when it's already discussed earlier in the Mishnah? So before we go to the Mishnah, let's see back the Rambam again. The Rambam is in Hilchot Schirut, chapter 7. This is the halacha whether or not there was a bill of rental and whether or not there were witnesses to the rental. If the renter must pay, he may pay first, cast a ban upon anyone who takes his money illegitimately. Alternatively, after giving the money, he may then restate his claim, and he had already paid once before, and demand the additional payment back. The landlord will then be required to take an oath of indictment to support his claim. And you see it in the Choshen Mishpat 3:17. If the landlord demanded the payment after the period of rental was completed, or even on the day it was completed, then the burden of proof is upon the landlord. If he cannot bring proof, then the renter take an oath supporting his claim, and then he is exempt. This is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yanai and Rabbi Yochanan. So here we have to zoom in the Mishnah, and the Mishnah is the well-known disputation in regards to Pidyon Haben. A little bit the halachot of Pidyon Haben. Our Torah tells us in the book of Shmot, chapter 13, the mitzvah of V'chol b'chor Adam levanecha tifdeh. The Torah said that every firstborn we need to redeem. We all know the story of Exodus, and the first one is belong to Hashem. And the Torah said in the book of Bamidbar, chapter 18, uvduyav mi ben chodesh tivde be'erkecha be'erkach kesef 5 shekalim b'shekel hakodesh. The Torah said that the time of redeeming a baby, it's from 30 days period, and the amount that needs to be given to a kohen, to a priest, is 5 silver. So this is a positive commandment in the Torah that ask every fellow Yisrael, someone he is not a Kohen and not a Levi, when it's a peterech, meaning if that baby was not after the mother miscarried a child, God forbid, or after other issues that the mother have maybe in the past, it means that he's a pure firstborn baby boy. So if that wife, that mother is not a daughter of Kohen, not a daughter of Levi, that baby, when he reached 30 days of life, that baby needs to do this exchange. In a way, the baby belongs to Hashem, the one who presenting God is the Kohen. So we have more kind of, in our days, you see that ceremony that the Kohen receive 5 silvers, which by the way the Kohen doesn't need to give it back or do anything, it's his, in exchange, quote unquote, of giving the baby back to the family. That's called at the 30 days, Simchat, the celebration of Pidyon Haben. Did anyone here attend that ceremony? I can say about 28, 29 years ago, our oldest son, Elimelch, so we have this beautiful ceremony of Pidyon Haben in Yerushalayim. So all the very well-known Rabbonim attended. So the one who did it was the late Spinker Rebbe, who was also a Kohen. So he is a Hasidic Rebbe, and you know. So I remember as today that we brought the little baby boy on the silver plate, and there's all kind of minhagim. It's a garlic there, that is a sugar there. It's all kind of minhagim how you bring the baby. And it was all the Rabbonim, Rosh Yeshivas standing there around. And the Spinker Rebbe was with no fear, with no kind of trepidation. He looked at her and he said to her, "Is it your first child?" "Yes." "Are you sure about it?" "Yes." "You never miscarriage?" "No." "You definite sure that it's your first child?" And it was kind of, you know, but I mean, people took it as a joke, and it's nice, but that's basically the requirement, that if it's a really first baby boy, after 30 days period, the father, that's the obligation, the positive commandment upon the father, to do Pidyon Haben, to release the child by giving 5 silver to the Kohen. Now, here is the problem. The father may, for all kind of reasons, go to the Kohen, which is wrong, but he can do it in a sense, give to the Kohen during the 30 days period the 5 silvers. Can be many cases. For example, there are Kohanim that are very poor. They are waiting for that 5 silvers. And by the way, 5 silvers, I don't know the exact amount, but it can substitute by some money. It's good. It's good money. Now, the problem is, if the father gave the money to the Kohen prior to the 30 days period, it doesn't have an effect. Why? Because the son, it's still, the baby boy is still not bar pidyon. It's not yet obligated to be redeemed. He's not 30 days old yet. So by giving the money prior to the 30 days ceremony to the Kohen, in a sense, he cannot do that. He cannot redeem the child. The child is not candidate to do it yet. Now, if the father gave it to the Kohen with the mindset that, you know what, Mr. Kohen, when the 30 days will take place, you will release my son, and the money is still in the hand of Mr. Kohen, all right? So, at the 30 days period, it's effective. But here's the disputation. If, unfortunately, the Kohen, for example, was very indigent, was pressed for fun, he gets the money from the father during the 30 days, and he spends it. And now it's the day that the baby boy needs to be redeemed. So according to Rav, since the money was given before, prior to the proper time, he said it's not lechatchila, it's not the way it should be, but if it happens, it happens. Shmuel disagreed, and Shmuel said the baby boy is not redeemed because the time that was given to a father and the time that the baby is candidate to be redeemed, the baby, when he candidate to be redeemed, the father did not hand the money to the Kohen. So whatever happened earlier, it's premature and it doesn't take effect. That's the Gemara in Bchorot, page 49a and b. So here we zoom in, Ditnan. Meta av betoch 30 yom. The father had the baby boy, but unfortunately, that's, for example, soon we're going to read the story of Esther, right? So what happened to Esther Amalka, the Queen Esther? She lost. Why Mordechai adopted her? Because she lost her parents. So here we have the case, should never happen to anybody, but someone have a baby boy, and unfortunately during the 30 days period, he is no longer among the living, the father. So here we have a total predicament. Our quandary is, did the father give the 5 silver to the Kohen prior to his passing or not? So we have the assumption bechezkat shelo nifda. We assume that the baby was not redeemed. Why is that? It's very simple, logical way of thinking. The rabbi said that how usually the people pay their debt. Usually there are people who are late. There are people who pay the last moment. In an average person, you don't see people pay the debt in advance. So therefore, since we have here a situation that the father needs to pay for his son the 5 silver when the baby boy reached the age of 30 days, we assume that the father did not, in a way, hire or paid any Kohen prior to that. Ad sheyavi re'aya shenifda. Only if we realize by having a witnesses that confirm it, as the Rambam tells us, as the code tells us, that proof that the baby boy already, the money for the 5 silver was already given to a Kohen prior to that day. However, if the father passed away le'achar 30 yom, if the father passed away after the baby boy reached the 30 days period, bechezkat shenivda, we have the assumption that this baby was redeemed, and therefore you don't need to have any act of redemption, ad sheyomru lo, until people tell him shelo nifda, that he was not redeemed. So, which is, for example, if the father claimed at the time of passing that he didn't do it, that he didn't redeem. For example, Rashi over there in Bechorot 49 said that if, for example, the father, while he was in a deathbed, said to people that he did not redeem his son, so then it's a different story, so we know clearly. So now we try to juxtapose this one to our original subject, which is a conflict between landlord and tenant in regards to paying rent. So if it was during the time of the lease, we assume that he didn't pay. And as long as the tenant did not bring a proof that he paid the landlord, we take the word of the landlord. If it's a regular manner of loan, so there we have a Gemarrah in Bava Batra, page 5, that tells us that's the disputation between Abaye and Rava, but the rule is that the borrower, we do take his word that he paid in advance. Now we should know, the way we explain this Gemara is follow the Rashi and Tosfot. It's important to know that there is a view of Rif and the Rosh, the early Rishonim, and they said, and I quote, דתניא כל 30 יום בחזקת שלא נתן עד שיביא ראיה שנתן, לאחר 30 יום בחזקת שנתן עד שיביא ראיה שלא נתן. So it means, according to that view, is the Tana teaches that if the disputation was during the 30 days, you go by the landlord. After 30 days, you go by the tenant. But anyway, as we said, we go by Rashi and Tosfot. לא צריכה ביומא דמשלם זימני. Here we talk about the exact day that the rental was completed. So what happened? The tenant claimed that he already paid in the morning. The landlord said that he never received the rent. So now the Gemara explained it. Mi avid inish de para yomal de mishlam zimnei. Do you going to tell me that a person is up to pay his debt on the very day on which the period on which to pay them is completed? Or lo, or you said that he's not. So it means that the landlord is trustworthy to say that he didn't pay him. So it means the beginning of that day is like the end or not. So the Ritva said the time of payment is passing the day of rent. But most of the Mefarshim said that that's the last day. It's like regular contractor, when you're paying a contractor. So basically you hire him to do a job, and upon completion, right, you paid. So here you have the rent. We assume that the day of the completion, the last day, is the time of payment. Amar lehu Rabbi Yochanan. So he said, you know, a solution for your problem, for your question, it's already resolute on page 111. Amar lehu Rabbi Yochanan teni tuha. We already learned in the Mishnah. Page 103, Sachir. If a higher labor claim his wages at the proper time, bizmano nishba venotel. So this is the Gemara in Shvuot 44 that said that in general any manner of shvuot, of oath by the Torah, so the defender makes the oath and free. But here even the claimant do it. That's one of the category. So Gemara said, Sachir hu deramu Rabbanan shvuah le mishum de bal habayit tarud bepo'alav. אבל אך הסוחר מהימן בשבועה. So when it's come to higher labor, the sages impose an oath upon him because the employer is busy with his worker. But here, when it's come to rental, we can impose an oath, and therefore the renter is deemed credible that he's already paid the rent, provided that he's taking an oath. That basically that's the idea of socher nishba venotel. For sure, if we have more time, another time we can discuss here the Tosfot and the Ravid. But the idea is that the framework is more than b'miktzat. We agreed in part. Omar Rav Amar Rab Nachman Hayman de Ogar lebeita lechavre le 10 shnim. A fellow rent a house, Reuven rent a house to Shimon for the period of 10 years. וחתם להשתרה, he wrote a promissory note, like a regular document, a regular contract. ואמר לי, נקית 5 שנים מהימן. He says, it's 5 years a period that you occupied it, it's another 5 years left. So we take his word. There is a concept of hamotzi mechavero. We discussed many times that you have the burden of proof upon the tenant. The chidush here, it's the idea that's the shita mekubetzet and others that said that it's like modeh b'miktzah, that he agree in part. So Gemarrah Cholin אמר לרבחה מדיפתי לרבינה למעתה עוזפי מהזוזה בשטרה פרטיך פלגה כהכד עמד נאמן. If someone said in a half of money, it's said that the lent, if one lent 100 dinars to another with a promissory note, and later the borrower said to him, I've already repaid half of the loan. So he said the same thing, that you take his word and it's that's enough. אמר לי, הכי השתהת המשטר לגובי נקעתי. אימית לפרעית למכתבה גבי. So over there, the purpose of that promissory note is to collect. So basically, the Mukhe Yosef said that if it wasn't paid, he will not allow him to write it. Inam מכתבה לתברה. That he wrote half. אבל אחא, אמר לי, the landlord said to the tenant, היי דכתיב להשתר כי עד לא תחזק עלי. The reason that I wrote it is to ensure that you will not be able to establish a presumptive ownership of the property and thereby be able to claim it belongs to you. So here you said that this bill cannot be used to prove that the renter has the right to occupy the property. So in general, even you have by the claimant a promissory note that we take his word that it's paid, but that's the chidush here according to Harav Chaim Naftali. Amar Rab Nachman shel adam betuvo lo la'am. So a person borrow utensil and does the work. If he requests to borrow it again, as long as it's a good working order, so he can do it, because we go basically the language of people. And the Ritva explains, when people said betuvo, that's what they meant. Tosfot and Ritva, Tosfot and Mukhe Yosef have the whole notion that people can do it again and again as long as it was a good term. But the Gemara now circumscribed it and said, Amar Amari bna, brother, bat Shmuel, vehu dekanemine. All of that applies when it was an act of acquisition, which means that the borrower take from the one we borrow with a kinyan sudar. So Netivot HaMishpat explained that you have here the smichudat. The smichudat is a kinyan sudar, but the kinyan sudar is just the act of affirmation. Amar Rav Mari ber Rav Rashi u'me'ader lekatei. So he said the moment that something happened, that utensil was broke, so the remaining parts you cannot use, meaning you have the obligation to return it. Amar Rav Ayman da Amar lechavri. Someone said to his fellow, Oshlan mara lemir hai pardesa. So just I want to borrow a utensil in order to dig up in the orchard. Rafik be'u pardesa, he can do it, but only in that specific orchard that he meant. Hau pardesa, Rafik be'kol pardesa de bai pardesa. If he said pardesei, if he said in the language of plural, Rafik v'zil kol pardesa deitle u'meta lekati. So he can go anywhere he wants, and he must return the remaining parts to the owner. So Amar Rav Papa, this is a related story. Hai man de Amar lelechavre oshlan hai garguta v'nafla lo banayla. Garguta v'nafla la banayla. So here the difference is by the word hai. So one who said to another, lend me this well for me to use to irrigate my field, and then the well falls down, and the borrower may not rebuild it and use it, as he had specified that he was borrowing that particular well. So he said, בי גרגותא קרא ואז לכמה גרגותא בערי, עד למתרם אלי וצריך למיקנה אלי. So here, if he said, lend me a place in your land for a well, so he may continually dig many different wells in the lender's land until it happens upon a water source that it was suitable for his needs. But in order to have this indefinite right, he needs to perform an act of acquisition concerning this right with the owner. So the Tivot HaMishpat said that the borrower cannot file a claim against the owner that he should build this well or he should give you a substitute one. Now we're going to the last Mishnah in this parak, dealing with a rental of houses. המשכיר בית לחברו ונפל, חייב להעמיד לו בית. So here the lender gave a house to a tenant or apartment, and something happened. Can be many cases, but the idea is that if it fell, you have the obligation to give others. So now we go to zoom in. Obviously everyone understands. You're renting, something crisis before, so you need to give something. But now we go to the specification. Why? היה קטן לא יעשה לו גדול, גדול לא יעשה לו קטן. אחד לא יעשה לו שניים, שניים לא יעשה לו אחד. So if, for example, it was a one large house, so the tenant said, I don't want a small house, because that's what my intent when I rented. If it was small, and he's comfortable with small, for example, one bedroom, he doesn't give him two bedroom, because again, the tenant said, it's not what I rent from you. If it was two, you should not make it one. שניים לא יעשנו אחד, לא יפחות מן החלונות ולא יוסיף עליהם, אלא מידת שניהם. If both party agrees, that's a different story. But other than that, he needs to give him exact what happened before. So obviously, you go and make agreement between the parties in a way that both happy with. היכא דמי, דאמר לי, דאמר לי, בית זה נפל, אזל לי. So it means that you, the tenant, have a bad luck and it happens. So why needs to give him something else? So the idea is, in general, the tenant needs to pay the owner, but he needs to pay the owner, that's the big argument, for the time of a lease or only the time that he occupied. According to Ramban, only the period that he occupied the house. According to others, and sometimes if it was מעשה קניין, you go by the lease. But anyway, אידה אמר לבית סתם, אחד אמר לו יעשינו שניים, קטן אמר לו יעשינו גדול. אמר יש לקיש, דה אמר לבית שאני מזכיר לך מידת אורכו כך וכך. It's almost like ברחל בתך הקטנה. That he spell out and he says, the house that I rent from you, that's the size, that's the length, that's the measurement. יחם מי לממרה. So why the Mishnah needs to say? אלא כי את הרבין אמר יש לקיש, דאמר בית כזה אני מזכיר לך. So it means here, he go and he said exactly like this. So ועקלתי מי לממרה. So again, what's the חידוש? לא צריכה כדקאי אגוד על נהרה. So for example, it was a very popular place, which is at the front of the river, right? That he wants exactly like that it's standing in a bank of river. He said that he needs to, we thought that he doesn't have the obligation, so they come to teach us that if he uses to such an expression, it is taken to refer to the dimension and the structure of the original house. So the Ritva and the Rambam said that it doesn't need to go exactly like that, for example on the front of the river, because here we talk only about dimension and structures and not the location. Hadran Allah HaShoel. Now we're going, Mitzvah Hashem, to the 9th chapter, and Mishnah. המקבל שדה מחברו, מקום שנהגו לקצור יקצור, לעקור יעקב, לחרוש אחריו יחרוש, הכל כמנהג המדינה. So here a person receives a field from another. So here have this idea of cultivation of the property. So either as a tenant or a farmer. So the idea is you go by the local, the way that they are doing it in the custom that in that location. And that's crucial. Later we explain what exactly the minhag המדינה. The shita מקובצת said that if it's not a minhag המדינה, so everyone does the way that they understand. But in general, the way that it's structured, you have to do it that way. If it's a uprooted, they uprooted. If a plow, they plow. It's a call according to the accordance with the original custom. כשם שחולקים בתבואה, כך חולקים בתבן. So Tosfot explains that the same halacha that you divide the produce, the halacha is divided the stubble and the straw. So תבן, it's what's the cut with the שיבולת. כך חולקים בתבן ובקש. So what's left, the straw. וכשם שחולקים ביין, the same way as they divide the wine from this vineyard, כך חולקים, so the same way as they divide, page 103b, בזמורות ובקנים, so it's also with the branches pruned from the vine and the poles, ושניהם, and both, which means the landlords and the one who cultivated the field, מספקין את הקנים, together they supply the poles. Bless you. So now the Mishnah bring a braita that extrapolate the first clause of the Mishnah. תנא, במקום שנהגו לקצור אינו רשאי לעקור, לעקור אינו רשאי לקצור, ושניהם מעכבים זה על זה. So it means that since it's a structure, in each place they have rules, so therefore the owner and the one who cultivated the field can each prevent the other from deviating from that custom. So now the Gemara explain that rule. לקצור אינו רשאי לעקור, האמר באינן דתבע אלי ערעה, האמר לא מצינה. So here you have that each party have some advance. The owner, the landlord, he gain that what's left over from the straw is in the land. The other one, it's much convenience to cut from uprooted. So each one, Rashi said, and Harav Chaim explains, each one can basically prevent the other from doing it. So they said, ושניהם מעכבים. They said, היי אמר לא מצינה, so he said, לעקור אינו רשאי לקצור, היי אמר באינן דתינא קרעי, היי אמר באינן תבנה, so each of them go in his direction, so they said לשניהם מעכבים זה למה לי, מה איתם כאמר, מה טעם לקצור אינו רשאי לעקור, לעקור אינו רשאי לקצור, משום דשניהם מעכבים זה על זה, because, Rashi said here, כלומר, because each of them can claim and said, both of them can prevent the others from deviating the custom, because each has a justified reason for opposing the deviation desired by the others. That's the way we explained earlier. The Nimukei Yosef, in general, ask a question, since we have the rules that akol keminhag hamdina, everything is according to the local customs, and many times in the Shas, why each of them can go and avoid the other from doing that? Why the Gemarrah did not spell out and said what exactly they can do? So that's what Yotam explained, that if it's just a cruelty from each other, that just one is a mean to each other, that's minhag sdom. So therefore the Gemarrah needs to explain what's the minhag in each location. Some place they cut the straw but not uprooted it, and there are other places that they go even further. Lacharosh acharav yacharosh. So they said if they are accustomed to plow the land after harvesting the produce, this cultivator must plow as well. So the Gemara said pshita, that's obvious, that he cannot deviate from the custom. Here we talk about the place that the custom is not to weed the fields. Vazali umenakish venakish mauletem amar le'ayden akishna adat lo karavinan la. The reason I did it, when I weeded the field, I did so with the intention of not plowing it subsequently, so therefore he should not be obligated to plow it. Kamashmenandi bailele perushale. So the Mishnah teaches us that the renter should have specified this intention explicitly to the landlord beforehand in order to exempt him from the requirement to plow. Why? Because later on, some of that weeds come back. So the Rashash asked if that's the case, so it's obvious to do it. So but anyway, you see in the tour in Choshen Mishpat, Shin Kaf 320, that said it clearly in a location where it's customary to plow after harvesting. The cultivator of the field is obligated to do so. In a location where it's not a universal custom, if he specified that he plans to do so, he may not renege of the obligation. But if the weeding, he stipulated that he was weeding on the condition that he will not have to plow, and the owner was silent, the owner is considered to have agreed to the stipulation. That's basically the way the Gemarrah rule. So they said, "Hakol kemina gamdina, hakol atuye mai, atuye detanu rabbanon." Makom שנהגו להשכיר לא תקבל קרקע משכירים. מקום שנהגו להשכיר אין משכירים. So you go by the custom. If in location that where the landlord has custom to rent out the trees, you do that. Otherwise, you don't do it. So the Meiri said, because it's just go by the structure, and you have to really stick to the rules. מקום שנהגו להשכיר משכירים פשיטה, לא צריכה דכולי על מה יהווה בתילתה. ואזל יהיו ויהווה ברבעה. So everyone goes by the 1/3, and this fellow go by the 1/4. So they said, מה עוד אתם אמר לי? היי דבצרי לך עד לא יבין לך בלנות, כמה שמלן דיבר לפירוש עלי. So he may say that I gave it to you with the intention that you also give me a share of the fruits of the trees. So the Bible teaches us that the cultivator should have specified this to him clearly, lucidly in advance. מקום שנהגו שלא להשכיר משכירים. So פשיטה לא צריכה דכולי עלמא מקבל בריבה ואזל לו לקבל בתילתא. Give 1/3. מה עוד תימה? אומר לידתי פיילי, עדת להביד לבילנות, כמה שמונה דבר לפירוש, the same idea, that he needs to spell it out. כשם שחולקים בתבואה, כך חולקים בתבן ובקשמר. רבי יוסף בבל נהיגו, דלא יהי ותבנה להריסה. The minhag in Bavel is that we not give the stubble to the sharecropper. The mind of Kamina, what's the difference? If someone does that, so there is a person that consider that he has a generous disposition. But we do not learn from this the action that is in a general practice. So sometimes in order to keep the field, they put a ditch around the field. Amar Rav Yosef Buchra v'tafta ve'arkavta ve'kanei dechizra. All those list of things that the first, second, and third element of the earthen barrier surrounding the field, and the poles used to support the thrown fence are the responsibility of the owner of the land. The Baal Habayit v'chizra gufei da'arisa. But the fashioning of the thrown fence itself is the responsibility of the sharecropper. So they said, klal demiltai, general rule, general principle, kol ikar balama, the Baal Habayit niterutei yetera da'arisa. So again, whatever is the main part of the boundary of the field, so the owner is responsible. The additional protection is the sharecropper. ואמר רבי יוסף, מרה וזבילה ודבלה וזרנוקה דבעל הבית, אריסא דאבד ביאורי. So he said that Yosef hold that the hoe and the shovel and the bucket and the irrigation device is the owner responsibility, while the sharecropper must take the irrigation channels. So basically it's a disputation if Rav Yosef said it only in Arisut or not. Let's say two in Choshen Mishpat, Shin Kaf, we do not have time. כשם שחולקים ביין, כך חולקים בזמורות ובקנים. The same way as the divide in the wine, the divide in the branches pruned from the vine and the poles. קנים מה יביא לטיו? What's the purpose of the poles used for the vines? אמר לרבי ינאי, קנים המוחלקים שבהם מעמידים את הגפנים, ושניהם מספקים את הקנים, למה לי מהייתם כאמר, מה איתם שניהם חולקים בקנים? What's the reason that the poles used were divided in that way they have? So they said, מהייתם כאמר, מהייתם שניהם חולקים בקנים, משום שניהם מספקים את הקנים. Because they support the wine and the two of them supply the poles. So here the beauty of this Mishnah, the Shita Mekubetzet said, name of Ravid, that each party can force another one to supply these poles, and the Rambam goes different direction, but again we do not have time. I would like to conclude with something I just read in the Yated Ne'eman, in the magazine. It's a 2-point. First, we pray for the refuah shlema of the Rosh Hashiva. The Rosh Hashiva, Rabbeinu Harav Aaron Yudaleib Steinen. So we learned previously that an important lesson from a well-known halacha that our sages tells us that the person who rents a house from his fellow Jew may not remove the mezuzot when his lease is up. So the Gemara goes on to describe the horrific punishment. You remember we studied it, made it out to one who disregards this prohibition. So the reason behind it is that the mezuzah protects a house from all kind of demons called Nezikin, destructive influences that can damage the next occupants of the house. On the surface it looks as though the renter did nothing wrong. After all, if the owner is worried about the Nezikin, about those forces, he can put a mezuzah on the house that he plans to rent. Nevertheless, removing the mezuzah can indirectly cause harm to another, and one who does so is severely punished. We understand from this that hurting another person directly is much more serious. Let us all strengthen ourselves to avoid harming our fellow in any way possible. Also, from the book called Chashukei Chemed, the Yated Ne'eman here brought the story here we learn in this daf about the tenant and the landlord. Sadly, there are some people who take unfair advantage of others, cheating them out of their dues. So one group of poor people had a strange practice. They will scotch together money in order to pay the first few months of rent to satisfy the demand of the new landlord, and moving to the apartment, they will then claim that they will not afford to pay more and use local law to remain in the apartment until they were finally evicted. You know people like that? Unfortunately. So they had once, they done this 3 times, and people knew about them, were very upset. So how could someone knowingly rent an apartment or house on false pretenses time after time after time? They figured out that this person was like any thief regarding whom the Chafetz Chaim rules. One may publicize their identity to protect others from harm. So of course there are 7 conditions on this halacha in the Chafetz Chaim. One has to know that it is true. 2, one has to be sure that the person stole. 3, that's from the Chafetz Chaim. 3, one has to rebuke the sinner. 4, one cannot exaggerate what happened in any way. 5, one has to intend only leto'elet. If he has any pleasure or other intention in telling, he is transgress, even though his words could save another from theft. 6, if there is another way to protect people, he should use that way and not speak against his fellow. Number 7, the person must not be made to suffer more than the Bet Din would have done to him. Although they felt sure that all of these conditions were fulfilled here, they asked a renowned posek and renowned rabbi to be sure. After all, if they were wrong, shaming another publicly is akin to murder, and they did not want to do this in their conscience. So when this question was presented to the late Rav Yosef Shalom Eliashiv, Alav Shalom, he ruled it is forbidden to publicize the names of these people publicly. The reason is that they truly do not have money to pay the rent. Although they are obligated to collect money to pay the debt, it is forbidden to shame them just because they fail to do so. If they are blacklisted in such manner. So you are correct, however, that we should not just ignore this kind of behavior. You should publicize in the papers that there are people who have rented several times, paying only the down payments with the prior intention of remaining in the apartment as long as possible without paying more rent. It is therefore incumbent upon all landlords to carefully check where the potential renter lived prior to that rent, and whether they pay the rent. This way the landlord will protect themselves and these people will not be publicly shamed.